Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third and final day of the first ever RSPO North America Sustainable Palm Oil Dialogue. My name is Cameron Plesch, and I am the U.S. representative for the RSPO. We're going to wait a few minutes for all of the other attendees to join us. So while we wait, please take a moment to answer the poll question, and we'll share those results shortly, and we'll get started in about a minute or two. For those of you just joining us, hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us. We'll be starting in a minute or so, but in the meantime, please answer the poll question that's up, and we'll share those results before we begin. All right, I already broke the first rule of muting myself. I apologize, everybody, but hello and welcome again to the third and final day of the first ever RSPO North America Sustainable Palm Oil Dialogue and this fifth panel for the conference. My name is Cameron Plesch, and I'm the U.S. representative for the RSPO. Thank you for answering our poll question. It's really great to see that so many of you are already involved in supporting smallholders and that some of you are still planning to in the future. This will be a really great session for all of you to learn a little bit more about how you can further support smallholders. Over the last 2 days and concluding today, this virtual conference has been hosting a series of webinar sessions covering a wide range of important topics, all focusing on how North American stakeholders can make an impact. I'm very excited today to introduce the first session for today's panels, which is titled Smallholders, How Do I Get Involved from North America? But before we begin today's session, a bit of housekeeping for everybody. All of you are in listen-only mode, with only the panelists and moderators being visible and audible. However, we would love to hear from all of you as well throughout the session. So throughout the session, please type all of your questions into the questions box located in the menu bar on the right. We'll ask as many of these questions as we can during the session, but we'll also have a Q&A session dedicated after we conclude our panel discussions. Please let us know when you type your questions, whether it's for any of the individual panelists or whether it's for the entire panel. And although this panel was originally planned to be with the whole conference in person, for obvious reasons, we're joining you from all around the world, including one of us all the way in Taiwan. So please bear with us if there are any technical challenges, including the host muting themselves throughout the beginning portion. So with that, I'd like to introduce the moderator for this session. Tai Ullmann is the sustainability lead in North America for Cargill's global edible oil solutions business. She focuses on driving sustainability impact across oil supply chains. This includes developing partnerships, programs, and innovative solutions to addressing our collective environmental, economic, and social challenges. Prior to Cargill, Tai spent 5 years at Land O'Lakes, leading dairy sustainability, and was a GreenBiz 30 under 30 emerging leader, of which one of our other panelists, Prerna Chatterjee, has also been recognized for. Tai, thank you very much for joining us, and over to you.
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to host this panel and dive into this conversation about smallholders, such an important part of our palm supply chain. So to get started, I would love to ask all the panelists to introduce themselves and give a little bit more background on their work. So Prerna, let's start with you.
Hi, and thanks for having me. I'm Prerna Chatterjee. I'm responsible for sustainability for BASF for their Care Chemicals division in North America. I've been in the role for 3 years, and prior to this, I was with the corporate sustainability team at BASF. I have a master's in sustainability management from Columbia University in New York. So pretty much been in the field through and through. And excited to be here. We've been working extensively on sustainable palm for, I guess, since 2014. So I'm glad to be a part of the panel.
Great, thanks, Maricarmen.
Yes, thank you very much, Tai, and well, happy to be here as well. My name is Maricarmen Lopez, and well, I work in OleoPalma, which is a palm oil production company in Mexico. So we have plantations and mills in the southeast of Mexico. And well, currently my role is as a special projects director. So I coordinate some of the collaborative programs that we have around sustainability. And well, currently I am coordinating a smallholder certification program with producers that are in our supply base. So yes, thank you very much for having me, and happy to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Reza, do you want to round out the introductions?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody, or evening. I'm the Executive Director of Wild Asia and also the founder. Wild Asia is a sort of, it's a social enterprise. It's based out of Malaysia, but through our work in oil palm, we've more or less had a footprint in just about all the production regions of oil palm, with the exceptions of the Latin Americas, because it was just too far. And I think that's also been a sort of emerging space just in the last 5-6 years or so. I've had a much longer history with biodiversity conservation, almost about 26 years. In palm, it's been a focus for me for at least the last 15 years. And initially, it was very much around how do we explain the RSPO standard to the very large producers or estates. And so that's been the sort of cornerstone of our work for our work within Wild Asia. And that's led to training programs that we've done for companies. We collaborated to produce the first RSPO lead auditors training, which was run for many years and still continues. But I think the most exciting part of my career seems to be, started about 10 years ago when we decided to shift focus from RSPO for the big guys to RSPO for the small. So we've been working with the smallholder space now for almost 10 years. And I think smallholders is a code word for many different things. And so the word smallholder, it also represents marginalization. People who have land insecurity or lack of natural resources or livelihood issues. It also hides the diversity which sits behind this label of smallholders. So the smallholder of Latin America or Mexico is very different from the smallholder who's sitting in a state in Perak or the Thai smallholders, but they're all lumped under one thing, which is smallholder. It hides the diversity that sits with the, within whether it's women farmers, male farmers. It's also one of the things that hides a lot of history in terms of how smallholders access land in the first place. And one of the big things which I've seen, and especially in palm, in palm, the entire conversation, especially 15 years ago, was around large estates, so the plantation model. But when you look at different agriculture systems, there's actually the smallholders, which is the common land producers, producers of different crops. So in some ways, oil palm and a few other commodities are the anomalies, really. And that, I think, was kind of what I wanted to just start with in terms of just sort of setting the scene with, what is smallholders. But I do see them as an opportunity, because I think that diversity is where innovation lies, and these are the risk takers as well, and some of the early adopters.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a really good start to the conversation around what are smallholders and what does that category really cover, especially a lot of the diversity that you mentioned, Reza. Building off of that, can we talk a little bit about why they're important for North America companies and the supply chains that we work with here? So let's start with Prerna, if you want to build off of what Reza just said.
Sure, absolutely. So smallholders, they contribute a lot to our global supply chain, with representing 40% of the world's palm oil supply. And as far as the sustainable palm oil demand market goes, it's mostly coming from Europe. So I think as North American companies, we truly need to step up and provide a demand for sustainable palm. And that's really going to, stimulate and incentivize the smallholders more to ensure that they are focusing more towards cultivating palm oil sustainably.
Maricarmen, anything you want to add from your perspective?
Yes, thank you, Tai. Well, yes, I think just as Prerna said, I think smallholders are really important because they really represent a big amount of the oil that is produced globally. And for example, to give information about Mexico, they represent more than 85% of the oil that is produced here. So I think, this makes them, of course, very important. And I think it's a matter, to everyone, not just North America. I think it's a global matter. As we know, like the products that can be produced in Mexico or in any place in the world, they end up in a global market, right? So I think it's a matter to everyone, and it's important for us to look for ways to engage with them.
Very good points. So as we think about the importance of smallholders in our supply chain, you all represent different points along the full sustainability palm value chain. It'd be really helpful from your perspective and where you are in the supply chain to share how do you work and support smallholders for North America. Maricarmen, let's start with you representing more of the production side of our supply chain.
And yes, Prerna, well, yes, as you said, I think, well, it is really important to look for ways for engagement with the smallholders. And actually, well, OleoPalma has a collaborative program with other organizations in the supply chain of palm oil. Specifically, we have a program to support 5 groups of smallholders to achieve RSPO certification. And in this program, we are working collaboratively with companies like PepsiCo, Nestle, that are co-funding this program, and also directly with RSPO, with the RSSF fund that they have available to support smallholders. And we'll also, of course, OleoPalma in the implementing part, and from the technical expertise. So we work with ProForest and Femex Palma, which is the Palm Oil Mexican Federation. So there is like a lot of organizations working together to make this program a reality. And well, this program is focused on supporting the smallholders to be better organized, and will create associations to help them achieve certification as groups. and well, also all the training and technical assistance for they to improve their practices on the ground. So agricultural practices as well as social and environmental practices. And well, I think one of the main things that we are trying to achieve is for them not only to achieve, sustainability, which is a very important part, but also to improve their productivity. Because we know that, talking about productivity is making them or helping them to produce more, and with that to have more income that will at the end help them to increase their livelihoods. So I think like in this program, it is very important that we are helping them to achieve the certification, but also with a focus on helping them to increase their productivity. So I think this is like an example that I've been working on within OleoPalma to support the smallholders on the ground. And well, this is like the first step in getting them engaged and helping them in the ground.
Great, thanks for sharing your perspective. As we move up the supply chain more towards the processing side, Prerna, it'd be helpful to hear your perspective on this as well.
Absolutely. I think the first thing is to partner with members in your supply chain. Like as a company alone, it's one thing to make a decision, but we want to make an industry transformation. So it's important to partner with partnering companies in the supply chain. So I think that's step one, to ensure that there is that demand. We are giving that demand to our smallholders for sustainable palm. Second is definitely financial investment, to truly provide financial investments to our NGOs, who then on the ground can train the farmers in terms of great, sustainable agricultural practices, equipping them with technical tools in order to get RSPO certified. So I think these are the two key points. There's also something called RSPO smallholder credit that RSPO member companies can purchase. And when you purchase that, it directly goes to smallholder farmers, who can then use that as a financial help to get their certification in place. So these are a few ways where I feel North American companies can truly step up.
Great, thanks. Do you have an example of one of these partnerships or projects that would be helpful to share?
Sure. So we have actually last year we launched a joint partnership project with Estee Lauder, RSPO, and the NGO Solidaridad. It's about 1,000 farmers in Indonesia in an area known as Lampung. So we're providing them with good agricultural practices and training. Also, even the BASF's agricultural wing stepped in to truly help and make them understand what the importance of sustainable agriculture and so on. So I'm 1 year into the smallholder game, let's say, and it's totally a 3-year project. So the final aim is to ensure more of these farmers get their plantations RSPO certified.
Great, thanks. Reza, do you want to share your perspective coming from an NGO partner in this space?
Okay, Cam. Yeah, we seem to have started on one side and up and down. Yeah, I think Wild Asia's had a sort of unique position, because I think we've always recognized that we wanted to couple solutions to the businesses who we know are going to be there for many, many years. In other words, the mills. And so 10 years ago, we started with, first we supported the mill to be RSPO certified. And then we started to say, well, if you want to include the villages which are around you, maybe let's create a group scheme that allows this to be connected into your supply chain. So that really started our journey in this. And today, what started at a village level has sort of grown to almost a landscape level, simply because we recognize that it is about the business being empowered on the one side. So this is important in terms of getting resources and the attention. So all our work is connected to all just about a number of big brands in Europe and the States and Japan, but it is enabled by the people in the middle. So this idea that because palm is quite a complex chain, it is a business-to-business relationship that one has to cultivate. So one of our partners described us as a sort of the organization that goes up in the lift. So we're operating at the ground level, but we're quite equally working with the guys in the middle, and then the fellas in the brand at the very top. So, and that's a fairly unique perspective because most growers don't see it beyond the mill, so to speak. The other thing which I kind of see is that the other thing is not to lead this with misconceptions or simplified goals, which are usually set way, way away from the ground. So this idea that better production means more income is almost taking the smallholders down a very different path from where they could be, which is farms with diversity, farms with less of an industrial estate model, and one that is more appropriate to the small producers. And I would not have got to that realization if I didn't have that understanding of working with smallholders at a very different level and basically acting as a filter for the interests of the industry, interests of even sometimes the misconceptions of some of the large NGOs. So that's something that we've gained just because we've had less anxiety about meeting big picture goals, but really about establishing something that's operational at the ground level that can be coupled to the diversity of mill owners and companies which exist in Malaysia. I mean, Malaysia already represents quite a lot of diversity. But anyway, so that's from my perspective.
Great, thanks. Building off of some of the comments you guys have said, we have a question from the audience around income. Some of you have mentioned this as a key piece of your work. In terms of income for smallholder farmers, how much income per year could be gained by achieving RSPO certification? Does anyone on the panel want to lead us off that question?
Carmen, are you guys certified?
How much?
No, okay. Yeah. So I understand the question. I mean, I think it depends on who bears the cost of certification. So I think that's always one element of this. But what we've seen when we've looked at some of the studies from Thailand and some of the work that we're doing in Malaysia, the extras in terms of maybe sometimes it's in terms of premiums, etc., is quite small. I mean, it's about say 10 ringgit out of 400 ringgit of I can't remember the percentages. So it's a very small amount. But what's important is that it's this access to education, access to support, which continues with this relationship with a mill or some local organization. So that means that they have sustained sort of education for better production. I think that's the principle. But one of the biggest gains that we've seen is changing the model. So this idea that you can plant palm, but if you plant palm in a low production input manner, add more diversity to your farms, your income gain from yields and new income to your farm can be as much as 100% increase in terms of your farm gate income. So, and that to me is a pretty powerful change versus just being certified. But certified is the way that you get support into these regions. So I see this whole conversation around, I mean, this whole space of RSPO has given opportunities, and I think that's an important thing. It may not be relevant for everybody, but this is one way of delivering support into regions. And if you think about some of our work is now extending over 10 years, and we've had partnerships for about 5 and now talking about another 5, those relationships are far more impactful than the usual donor model, which is I will give you money for 1 year, 2 years, and then that's it. And that to me is important.
Yeah, good point. So it's not just about income, but the total package of what certification can bring both to smallholders and across across the whole supply chain. Thank
Exactly.
you. So when we took the poll earlier, a large majority of you are already working with smallholders, but for those who haven't started yet and are exploring getting started, what advice would you have for companies that are just beginning this journey? Maricarmen, let's start with you.
Okay, well, this is actually, I think, a very good question. And well, I can think of so many things. But first of all, I think it's very important to understand your supply base and how it works and the challenges that are in there. Because obviously it depends on where it is, the challenges that are there, right? So I think that, for instance, is very, very important. And of course, don't do it alone. I mean, there is so many local actors, maybe your suppliers that are working already on the ground, local organizations that can give you like a lot of information on what's really happening, what they have seen that works, what doesn't work. And I think build from there, it's very important. And of course, if you are already there and you have made the commitment and you are trying to make this plan, I think it's really important to be flexible. Sometimes you think like, yeah, I'm planning everything. I have activity 1, activity 2, activity 3. But when you go and you start building that, it may be a little bit different. So you have to be ready to make changes and to make decisions. And there's nothing bad with that. I mean, you start learning. I mean, there is people with experience. There are experiences already happening, but every time it's different. So I think it's important that you are able to learn from the things that you are building and to really understand how your supply base works.
Yeah, I can completely echo what Maricarmen said. Flexibility is key for the kind of challenges that come in. And I think one advice I'd like to share while going in for companies is think beyond financial support. Look into your company and see what are your key strengths. Like, do you have an agriculture team that actually can step in and really help the farmers? Or are you really good in media campaigns? So can you educate and run education campaigns for the farmers? Or are you also maybe good with digital tools so you can provide them access to apps or applications where you can push these training forwards? So what are the other values that you can actually bring to the table apart from, of course, the financial investment that's needed? So kind of have that evaluation while going in. I think it truly makes it more complete. And the other thing is, unlike any other projects that we've done where we have a step 1, step 2, step 3, and you get to step 2 after you go to step 1, a smallholder project, the moving parts are all happening at the same time. So don't be afraid of having simultaneous conversations with multiple parties at the same time. It's all going to come together and fit nicely. So I think that was my learning. So, and yeah.
Great, thanks. Reza, anything you want to add on your end?
No, I think you've said it all. I was actually going to say that this is a journey for companies that want to do good. I mean, it has to resonate with the core values, because it will mean that it's not just about a nice CSR project. And I think that we've been lucky that we've been working with some of those types of companies which have a much more longer term view with some of these things. And I think the common theme with all of this is about partnership. And it's business partnerships connecting with local partnerships. And the fun part has been, how do we make that partnership grow or connect them all together? And that's not something that you can do as a sort of top-down initiative from Europe or from the States. So this idea that we can work bottom-up to meet top-down initiatives with a band in the middle of flexibility, I think that's another key. I think we've had the most impact from the least amount of money and the least amount of paperwork from projects, from those types of projects. And I keep saying to my partners, actually, my impact and my enjoyment of projects is inversely related to the amount of paperwork that goes with it. So we tend to stay away from the multi-million-dollar projects just because they are too over-planned and over-prepared for delivery on the ground, which you're all saying is the same thing. It's complex, it's dynamic. So that's about how you run, a business on the ground. You can't micromanage everything. So I think building local institutions connected to businesses working in the regions on a day-to-day basis is the key.
Great, thanks. So as we think about working with smallholders, it may be hard for organizations in North America to feel like they can have an impact on smallholders from a location that can be so geographically far away towards the end of a supply chain that they might not be directly connected to. So how have you seen the impacts of your work inspire or motivate you or others within your organization to continue working in this field? Prerna, let's start with you.
Yeah, so talking about impact, I think we can't expect to see an impact within 6 or 8 months. These are usually long projects, so we need to have patience to kind of see impacts maybe in 2.5 years, 3 years. That's the typical time frame that we see for these projects. But I would say it's absolutely fulfilling to see how hard the farmers are working given the resources that we try to provide them with. So I think that is absolutely fulfilling to see them not only learn, but also train other farmers in turn and kind of take that knowledge down to the next generation as well. So that's definitely very much rewarding, I would say. Also just knowing the fact that this is impacting, like you are ensuring that not only their lives and livelihood, but as also from an industry standpoint, this particular action has an impact on the sustainable palm oil supply chain. So knowing that is definitely gives us a lot of motivation to keep continuing this kind of work.
Maricarmen, anything you want to add from your perspective?
Yes, thank you. And well, I totally agree with Prerna. I think, seeing the changes that the smallholders are implementing and realizing that they are really following all the good practices that they have been trained about, I think it's really rewarding. But it's more rewarding when they realize the changes that are happening and they are like motivated because they see those things are really positive. So when you ask them and they they answer like, yeah, this is very good and this is actually helping and I'm producing more, or I can see my plantation different, I see more animals around my plantation, I don't know, there is so many different situations that the producer says, and it's very, very rewarding. And well, I will say, like, you're never far away, and not right now, not in these times. I mean, these times everything is about globalization, right? So it's the same idea that I was saying in the beginning, like this is a matter to everyone. And please, if anyone wants to come later on COVID and everything else to Mexico, I mean, Mexico is North America, please come see the plantations, look at the producers. And I mean, there's so many things that you can be inspired from. But yeah, looking at the real changes that are happening on the ground after you're implementing a program or in the progress of in the implementation, I think those are the big things.
Thanks. Reza, do you want to build off of the comments that were said earlier?
I mean, no, I think you guys have said it all. I mean, I think for me, actually, it's learning from the smallholders, which is where I've gained the most as an individual and also for the organization. Because I don't think we would have ended up on a, just sort of a different track from what the NGOs and the industry are saying are good for the producers. And that idea of, a sort of low cost bio agriculture system, which leads to an agroforestry system or whatever. I think these are things which, when we see it happening on the ground, and the farmers are the ones who are saying, well, actually it works. My leaves are greener. I'm getting more production. I feel better going into my farm. These are some of the things that we didn't expect, but yet those are the things that are keeping us motivated and moving forward.
Yeah, and building off of that, we have a question from the audience. Do you see smallholders continuing to maintain certification or increase yields or other benefits that you guys have mentioned after corporate partners have concluded their projects and partnerships? How do we make sure impact lasts beyond the lifespan of a specific program or partnership? I think all three of you have alluded to different aspects of that, but Reza, it'd be helpful to start with your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I guess we represent, again, the anomaly. Like a lot of partnerships end when funding ends, whereas we've kept in the space for about 15 years just because our model was different. But this idea that the farmers themselves, I mean, if you get the right message to them, they will continue the message. So in some ways, it is not important that they maintain certification after they're certified, because it's just a little bit of paperwork for them and a little bit of extra money. I think what's important is that the relationship with the mills who are producing more palm oil for the global market, to recognize that we can increase this production by supporting and building partnerships at the local level with these villages which are surrounding them. That to me is where something which started with corporate interest from Europe or wherever can actually last beyond the 3 years or 5 years that most people are in.
Thanks. Prerna, anything to add from your perspective?
Yes, I think I think once we interviewed one of our farmers, and she mentioned that she's of a project that had completed, and she mentioned that she's definitely going to continue practicing what she learned, because she spoke in terms of yield, she spoke in terms of livelihood, and she also said that palm is not the only crop she grows. She also grows timber and so on. But still, palm is the one that gives her, sustainable palm is the one that gives her, that truly contributes to her livelihood. So as farmers, livelihood is what is kind of incentivizing them, I'd say. So as long as sustainable palm kind of gives that to them, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be taken forward even after the project is over.
And Maricarmen, anything else to add?
Well, yes, I think, well, I agree with both. I think as long as the smallholders really realize that everything that they have implemented will continue giving them the same rewards or more, I think that's really important. I mean, you have to build from there. You don't have to do everything for them. Like, there has to be an equal work, and they have to gain what they are doing and understand how they can do it, and learn, not just like get everything and just for free and yeah, that's it. No, you have to learn and try to make sure that they are getting the information so they can continue with that. But I think, yeah, for sure that can be done.
Great, thanks. Then from the audience, building off of the certification conversations that we've been having, as several of you have mentioned that certification increases access to markets. Prerna, there's a question for certification at BASF and how that has been either a requirement or part of what you look for in your supply chains on palm. Do you mind talking a little bit more about that?
Sure. So starting in 2018, we decided that for BASF, we will move 100% to sustainable palm for our personal care portfolio. And we achieved that, I would say, within 8 months during the transition time. So since then, we've been in like an only sustainable palm certified journey throughout, be it supplying or procuring and so on. For the other businesses, so we're hoping, or our target is by 2020 to achieve that, and I'm sure we're well on our way. But I would say majority of our portfolio that is farm-based is on personal care, and that already transitioned in 2018. So we've been doing this for like 100% for 2 years now. Previously, we were still offering sustainable palm, but I think in 2018 is where we made the decision to completely like switch over to sustainable palm.
Great, thanks. And then building off of that question, Maricarmen and Reza, can you expand on how certification helps to access markets like North America?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's one has to understand that the palm as a commodity is a volumes game. So you need, I mean, to get the sort of 100% certified palm oil in Europe and the States, etc. Most of this is going to be supplied by very large agribusinesses anyway. I mean, so that's the reality. What is then, I mean, this whole conversation today was how do you use that to expand this towards the communities that are surrounding these large agribusinesses? And in some ways, this is really the key. I think the power of change lies in the middle. So those people who influence and can change those conversations around those middle players are the ones who can influence how RSPO certified production can extend from estates out into this wilderness of smallholders, complexity, diversity, etc. So I should leave that for the.
And yes, well, just to complement, yes, I mean, from the production side, like from OleoPalma, we have seen an increased demand for palm oil or certified palm oil. So I think obviously this engagement with the producers and supporting them to get the certification, this will ensure that they keep on in the market. Of course, there is a chain. I mean, the companies that are buying the oil needs to demand it, and of course the mills and all the companies that are working with the smallholders need to pass this message. But I think obviously this opens a lot of doors for smallholders. As everyone said, there is these independent smallholders credits, also the platform where you can sell the credits. So that's one thing. And obviously the physical side is also really important.
Great, thank you. So we're almost out of time. So I just want to wrap up with a quick round and ask each of you to share what is your call to action to everyone listening in on this panel, or what would you want them to take away from this conversation? Prerna, I'll start with you.
So the journey is going to be, it's not going to be smooth. You need to be flexible. It's going to be a little difficult, but it's very fulfilling and it is much needed. So not just by the industry, but even our smallholders, they need our support. So please don't hesitate and jump on board and join the bandwagon to kind of help the farmers there.
Thank you. Reza?
Yeah, okay. It's actually a really tough one because there's actually quite a few key messages from this call today. I think, I mean, maybe I would caution, I mean, there's, you know, like I said before, smallholders is a code word for many things. The diversity and the complexities on the ground are real, you know, and these questions around deforestation, etc., livelihood, a lot of this has a background to it that you have to understand. So landlessness could be a driver for deforestation. The lack of infrastructure means that there's less cash economy, but they could be okay because they have access to natural resources. But if those natural resources are taken away from industrial mining, plantations, etc., then it exacerbates the situation. So I really am cautioning sort of just having these sort of broad takeaway messages and we're going to save the world, guys. But maybe focus on this fact that we all want to get to that point, but the way to do this is to build long-term complex relationships. And I think that's a very Asian business way. You know, you find that they don't work a lot with policies and stuff. It's family relationships or relationships between businesses, which is how they continue. So I think that sort of idea that we can create multi-stakeholder relationships from this work with RSPO. And RSPO as a platform, I mean, for me to go to these events for, I mean, I'm going, again, for the next few years, I'm not sure about physical events, but the RSPO has been a very good platform for bringing me in contact with brands, with the manufacturers, processors, other NGOs, etc. But those relationships have been formed because of this platform. Similarly, using premiums as a way to get your foot in the door to understanding what can your business do. That I think is what RSPO certification and the whole RSPO platform provides.
Thank you. And Maricarmen?
Yes, well, just a few words. I think, well, it is important to talk about this topic and really invite all the organization companies and that are in this panel to really look into this and start your projects. It's a very rewarding experience. And while working in collaboration with other organizations, I think is key. Don't do it alone. Look for people that is in the local part, and you will be very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank the panelists for taking the time today and the audience for all of the good questions. And I'll hand it back over to Cameron to wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Tai, for lending your expertise to your experience in Cargill to moderate this great panel. And thank you, Prerna, Maricarmen, and Reza. Thank you for staying up until 2 in the morning to do this. And thank you all of you for and thank you all of you for joining us as well for this. We do have one more panel coming up starting at 2 p.m. Eastern time. If you have not registered for that one yet, you can do so at the RSPO website under the events section. Our final panel is on how zoos engage consumers and companies to impact sustainability. So it'll be a very exciting panel to listen to as well. And that will conclude our whole North America Sustainable Palm Oil Dialogue conference. This session and all the other ones have also been recorded, so we'll share them with you later as well. So thank you all very much for joining us in this dialogue, and stay safe. And thank you again to the panelists and to Tai as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.